Okay, Hare Krishna. Ishan Prabhu, welcome to our evening Sunday reading and discussions with Ishan Prabhu. Today's subject, Ishan Prabhu, you can elaborate and then we'll start. We're live now.
How do we cultivate feelings of love? I should begin by offering my respectful obeisances to everyone and especially to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyade Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right. So let us begin. Do how do we cultivate feelings of love? Well, in chapter 2, we established that the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, it's not a mechanical process. It's not that if we do certain things as we're prescribed to do, that one day we'll become devotional. And Srila Prabhupada, I quote again from his 1966 lecture, if one is simply sticking to the system, and these are very strong words, that is a waste of time. That is called niyamagraha, simply observing the rules. Lecture 1966, March 28, New York. So if the mechanical execution of Krishna consciousness activities is a waste of time, and these are very strong words, it's almost frightening, then, and we were taught this way. I lived with devotees for 10, 12 years, and this is the way we were taught in classes in our temples, that if we just do everything we're supposed to do, one day we will receive a benediction, a blessing will be bestowed upon us. We'll have feelings of love for Krishna. So if the mechanical execution of Krishna conscious activities is not the essential, what is the essential ingredient? So Srila Prabhupada, in our third chapter, in our third talk number 3 was that Srila Prabhupada declares, he says that we have the ability to love. Quote, the loving propensity is there already, but we have transferred the loving propensity that should be directed to Krishna. We have transferred the loving propensity to Maya. So the whole Krishna consciousness process, Srila Prabhupada continues, is again transferring the loving propensity from Maya to Krishna. This is the simple method. we have got love for Krishna, but being illusion, being falsely positioned, we're trying to love something which is not Krishna. This is Bhagavad Gita class 225, November 29, 1972. So we're going to try and bring this understanding into focus, that this body and this mind, this is our equipment, this is our instrument, this is our vehicle. When you drive a vehicle, every so many miles, you take it in for a tune-up. So Krishna consciousness requires a tune-up of this of this instrument, a tune-up of the mind and body, and it's called the mode of goodness. When we're in goodness, see, Krishna is omnipresent. Krishna is all pervasive. Yes, Krishna is in Krishna Loka, but he's also everywhere, within every atom and between Similarly, Srila Prabhupada, who is Krishna's confidential associate, I read this morning in our books that when one becomes a pure devotee, he acquires the qualities of Krishna. Maybe not to that complete extent, but he becomes very, very powerful. He's empowered. He's empowered by Krishna to take the role that he's the external manifestation of the all-pervasive super soul who's in all of our hearts. The spiritual bona fide acharya is the external manifestation of the Lord in the heart. So Srila Prabhupada is all pervasive in that sense. Krishna is all pervasive. So we are always. I read another quote that just before that somebody sent me on my email. It explained that when our consciousness is appropriate, we can sense this presence. We can sense that Krishna is present with us. We can sense that Srila Prabhupada is present with us. It's not that by doing, keeping a formula of activities for 100 years or whatever, 100 lifetimes, that one day we'll have realization. It's simply a question of working with our equipment so that we can sense what is always there. And we don't have to be advanced. 1.5.25 in Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada said, the neophyte, when he has association with a pure devotee, he can imbibe the taste of the pure devotee's feelings for Krishna. The neophyte. So and the whole process is this association, but we have to be able to start to taste this association. So when we talk of cultivating feelings of love, it's not that we have to generate something new, as we just read, Srila Prabhupada. It's already there, the capacity. Something new within ourselves, something that was not already there. It's more about how we can bring our inherent capacity to love into focus in our hearts. If we can do this, we can begin then to transfer those loving feelings to Srila Prabhupada and to Krishna, and to have a sense of living reciprocation. This is not, has nothing to do with advancement. This is something, therefore, Srila Prabhupada, I will read some of the things where Srila Prabhupada says later on. A Brahmana is the symbol of Sattva Gun. This is a purport. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:220. A Brahmana is the symbol of Sattva Gun, or the mode of passion. One cannot be a devotee unless one at least qualifies as a Brahmana. There's something about being in the Brahminical mode that enables one to be a Brahmana. He said one has this. Another purport, 1:224 Bhagavatam. One has to rise to the platform of the mode of goodness, sattva, so that one can be eligible for the devotional service of the Lord. Another quote, a Krishna book, 2nd volume, 26th chapter. Without becoming a Brahmin, one cannot approach the Supreme Brahman, Lord Krishna. So it's not a question of getting a reward for being a good boy or being a good girl. It's not about that. If the love is there, one is naturally going to be obedient because we want to please him. But obedience by itself, what Srila Prabhupada refers to as keeping the formula, mechanically doing everything we're supposed to. So the idea is that everyone wants satisfaction, devotee, non-devotee, human, animal, everyone, even the plants, they have these different tropisms. They grow towards the light. The roots grow towards the water. Everyone wants satisfaction, whether we're in the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, or the mode of goodness. Everyone wants satisfaction. When someone feels that it's not possible to find satisfaction, and they don't want to live anymore, they give up, either physically or they want to annihilate their sense of self by becoming an impersonalist and merging into the Brahma Jyoti. They want to end all sense of self. But actually, and there Srila Prabhupada writes and explains that in Srimad Bhagavatam says, no one can even stay in that Brahma Jyoti because the soul craves the exchange of love. So they come back to earth again and engage in good works, open a hospital, something of that sort. So everyone wants satisfaction. In the mode of ignorance, a person laments over the things of the past. Somebody did something to me. Somebody insulted me. Somebody said something to me. Somebody took something from me. Somebody hurt me. Somebody cheated me. This is the affairs of the past, however. We can't change the affairs of the past. This is why it's ignorance, because we're looking for satisfaction by saying if only the past was there. Past can't be different. So that's looking for satisfaction in the mode of ignorance, always thinking of those things in the past. In the mode of passion, we seek satisfaction in a different way. We think it's living in the future. If I can get this, if I can get that. What is it say? We want to obtain something, achieve something. We make plans. We're going to have education. We're going to have a career. We're going to have wealth then. We're going to have a family. We're going to have love. So this is so a person works very, very hard. And this is the pursuit of satisfaction dictated by the mode of passion. He's not as blind as the person who's living in the past, but who want, misery loves company. People have something happen to them, so then they want to tell somebody about it and get somebody to sympathize with them. you know, and this, so uh, so, but this is pursuing in the mode of, in the future mode, that's the mode of passion. The world runs like that. Except for those who are totally in ignorance, all they can do is sit and lament. So, 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 so Krishna describes this in the mode of passion. He talks about it in Bhagavad Gita, as I said, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, verse 39, that, of course, Krishna says, thus, referring to pursuing happiness in passion mode. Thus, a man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So this burns like fire means that the more we try to satisfy our senses, and the subtle sense, the mind, by our social position, our sense of power, our sense of wealth, our sense of anything, the more we try to satisfy, it's like feeding a fire. And the fire doesn't get satisfied, but it gets bigger. So this is the motive so that's why so and as it gets bigger, Krishna says in 337 of Bhagavad Gita, it's born of contact with the material mode of passion, and later it's turned into wrath, anger, because there's frustration. You're trying so hard and they're still not satisfied. So we can see that even those who acquire everything that money can buy, they can't stop themselves from wanting more. The billionaire, he feels he just needs another billion. And he works very hard to it. Similarly, the president of a country, right? He's got 300-400 million people cheering for him, but he's not. He wants to expand his sphere of influence. He wants to conquer other countries. This is the history of our planet. For the last 20, 30 centuries, as much as we have history, it's called imperialism. There are maps you can find on the computer where the different continents, they have color codes for each country, that Denmark or France or Italy or Spain, where they have accomplished influence in other countries, and for each conquering country they have a color. So you look at the continents and they're full of colors, where all the continents of the world are full. It's all not enough that we have our country and that the president, because it's always the guy on top. The people just want to live their life, feed their family, have the weekend off. But the man on top who's in the motor is not enough. We have to conquer. We have to have this. The British had India until the Indians kicked them out. they, they, They were making the Indian people, when they wanted to have salt, they would go to the ocean and to get some water and evaporate it. The British made it against the law that anyone could evaporate seawater, make salt. They made them buy salt from the British people. So um, this is all the mode of passion. So mode of ignorance doesn't work. Mode of passion doesn't work because no one's satisfied. Uh, Srila Prabhupada says that the whole planetary population is basically absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. So much, so deep. They actually believe that if I had more money, I could get everything that Amazon.com has to offer, and then I'll be happy. Okay, so so Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he 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 uh, he wrote a poem. It's called Reflections, and it's a very long poem. He wrote that in 1871. Before our time. He was understanding and trying to give instruction. So he's giving instruction. We're trying to understand. So he had one verse in that poem. Here, he's talking about whether we live in the past with all our thoughts, all our resentments, all our disappointments, all our frustrations, or whether we're living lamentation, or whether we're living in the future thinking, if I do this and I do this, I'll get this and I'll get that. He said, this is his poem, one verse. Forget the past that sleeps, and ne'er the future dream at all, but act in times in times that are with thee, and progress thee shall call. Okay, so he's saying we should live in the present. We should just be aware of what is right now, right here and now. We shouldn't be thinking ahead. We shouldn't be thinking behind. We should be in the present. So how do we do that? How do we live in the present? Uh, there actually, if looks, if one cares to, although Srila Prabhupada doesn't encourage, but if one looks at, I think, Buddhism or Taoism or different traditions, uh, they prescribe different practices that people can employ for living in the present. They actually have that. There are books on the market today. There's one man, what's his name? Can't remember his name, uh, but he writes a book called "Living in the Now," something like that. You may have heard. So it's very popular. People are understanding this concept that to live in present time. So living in the now. So however, in our Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about it too. He extols the practice of living in present time. In chapter 18, verse 54, Krishna says, he says how, Mad Bhaktim Labhate, you can become my devotee, but what's the prerequisite? Na sochati, na kankshati. What does that mean? Never lamenting, never desiring. Never lamenting means not living in the past, and never desiring means not living in the future. He says that a person if a person can do that, they can become a devotee. So how does one cultivate the ability to live in the present moment? Just to be in the present moment. The mind is always going into the past, and for most of our time and during the day, we're thinking ahead about what we have. We have our to-do list. So what gives one the power to sidestep this inclination of the mind to lament over things of the past and to disregard prospects for future fulfillment? Now, this is there what Krishna says. Nasochati na kankshati. You give it up and you can become a devotee. I'm not making up something new. It's in our book. So it's the ability to be fixed in the heart. What I got? Yeah, in a sense of inner peace. Yeah. If one is fixed in the heart, excuse me, in a sense of inner satisfaction, imagine feeling just totally satisfied. Then the mind doesn't have to think about achieving something because he does not thinking that if I get this, I'll be satisfied. If he's already satisfied, if a person is not thinking, if only the past was different, I'd be satisfied. But if he's got satisfaction in his heart, his mind doesn't have to try and change the past, which is impossible. And his mind doesn't think about getting something in the future because he's already the wealthiest person in the world. It's what everybody wants, to be satisfied. But they don't know how to find it within themselves. So they're thinking about the past and they're thinking about the future. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna in, in the 18th chapter, verse 42, Krishna, he lists the qualities of a real Brahmin. And what he's Samo Dhamma Tapa Socham Shanti Rajavam Eva Cha. So the very first quality, in that list of Brahminical qualities, he says not only that he sits like that, he says the very first quality is sama, peace. He's peaceful within himself. And he says not only he sits in peace, he said this is the quality by which the brahmanas work. Even while he's doing, he has enough peace within himself. You know, we're not supposed to be attached to the outcome of our activities. We're supposed to renounce our attachment to gain and loss, victory and defeat. But how can we do that? Can we do that? What's the word? Artificially? By determination. I won't be attached to how this project comes out. No, he said, but if the Brahmin, if he's got enough happiness, enough peace, enough serenity in his heart, he could do his job. And if something doesn't work out, he chuckles. He says, well, all I can do is try my best, but Krishna's in control. It's not so important because Krishna is only concerned about the feeling with which we do things, not the result. Krishna's in charge of the result. He can make anything happen or he can stop anything. So the first and foremost quality of the Brahman is samo, peacefulness. And it's this quality of inner peace that enables a Brahmin to have control over his senses. What is this? The senses want this and the senses want that. Why? Because they're not satisfied, because we're not satisfied. And we have the conviction, lust, Srila Krishna explains in chapter 3, it takes over the senses, It takes over the mind and it takes over the intelligence. Intelligence is like our orientation. When you start a new project, a new job, sometimes you get an orientation, a sense of direction, in other words. So lusty intelligence means that if I get this, then I'll be happy. It's lusty intelligence is living with a future goal, always a future goal. So the first quality, this peacefulness, so the person who's like that, he doesn't have to struggle to control his senses because his senses want satisfaction. But if he's in goodness, if he feels satisfaction within himself, his senses are automatically controlled. So this is Brahminical life. This is not even devotional life. But Srila Prabhupada says, as we read, that without becoming a Brahmin, one can't take up devotional life. Be a real Brahmin, not a piece of thread that one wears for 25 cents. Brahminical quality. There, Srila Prabhupada wanted to create a society of Brahmins. Why? Because, quote unquote, when Srila Prabhupada says again, is a Brahmin who can become a Vaishnava. A Brahmin can become devotional because his senses are under control and he has, okay, he's satisfied within his heart. And in the mode of goodness, what are the symptoms? When one reaches the mode of goodness, a person in the world, they want to do philanthropic work. They want to do humanitarian work, the things of that. They wanted to help people that because it's a symptom. In other words, they start to have a serving mood, and they take pleasure in the happiness of serving, of making others happy. And when Srila Prabhupada says, now they're qualified at this platform to, under proper guidance, they meet a real devotee. He says, you want to please. You're really meant to be pleasing Krishna because you're not material and you're spiritual and you're like the leaf on the tree is watering the root. The leaf on the tree gets the water back. This sense of reciprocation that we're trying to get in all our pursuits, we can get it because when we understand that I'm spirit. But the serving mood has to be there. And the serving mood is not that rubber stamped that officially I have painted the temple wall or officially I've donated $90,000, or officially I have done the incense in front of the deity, or officially I have put the plate on the altar and said some prayer. I've said the prayers just the way they're written. That's not the serving mood. The serving mood is really wanting to give pleasure to another being. So we have to adopt this in relation to our spiritual master and Krishna, and we have to be able to sense their presence. If we have the serving mood, we will sense their presence, and if we sense their presence, we will have their serving mood. It's always like that. It's a paradox, but there are many things like that in Krishna consciousness that are a paradox. So when we experience a profound sense of inner satisfaction of the heart, we're naturally peaceful. We're naturally self-controlled. We're able to withstand the dualities or to be impervious to the dualities of life in the material world. Sometimes I can tell you, sometimes we know better. We know I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. I've eaten enough, but we fail to behave according to the dictates of our wisdom, our knowledge, religiousness. So in Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, 6th verse, Krishna tells us, you've heard it before, the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. For him who, quote, for him who has conquered, this is 6th chapter, 6th verse. For him who has conquered the mind, the mind is the best of friend. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will be greatest enemy. So the key to conquering the mind is to establish the mind in this quality of inner peace of the heart. It's this inner peace of the Brahman that's a prerequisite to his engagement in pure devotional service. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada extols the Brahminical platform. Quote, we read this already. A Brahmin, one cannot be a devotee unless one is at least qualifies as a Brahmin. Srimad Bhagavatam 120, 1220. 1220. One cannot be a devotee unless one at least qualifies as a Brahmin means that one can't be a devotee until he's peaceful within himself. Otherwise, his mind and his senses is everywhere in the past and the future. uh, quote 1:224 Bhagavatam. One has to rise to the platform mode of goodness, sattva, so that one can be eligible for the devotional service of the Lord. We have to elevate ourselves to the mode. So, quote, without becoming Brahmin, one cannot approach the Supreme. So we hear these things, we read these things, we say these things, but we have to begin to understand how to cultivate. How do I cultivate? So in Bhagavad Gita, again, 18th chapter, Krishna declares that when one ascends to the platform on which there's no influence of the mode of ignorance, in lamentation, uh, and passion, nasochati kakshati, never lamenting, never desiring. In that state, he attains devotional service to me. My so, so this is Krishna consciousness. There's a paradox there. We find ourselves faced with the paradox. On the one hand, we're taught that the only way to experience real peace is by being engaged in pure devotional service. And then we're here that the Brahminical quality of inner peace is a prerequisite, that you need peace to be a devotee. And if you're a devotee, you automatically have peace. So these things are there. And there are many paradoxes in our teachings. Srila Prabhupada says, without becoming a Brahmin, one cannot approach the Supreme Brahman. At the same time, we're told that one who's engaged in pure devotional service is automatically on the Brahminical platform. Although we may feel that these instructions seem to be contradictory, the reconciliation is to be found in the understanding that in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, we're instructed to approach the challenge by tackling it from both ends. We try to be devotional and we cultivate the qualities of the mode of goodness. We do both. They're mutually, actually, they're the same. They can't be separated. But because we live in the material world and because we have our material vocabulary and because our vocabulary is an expression of cultural values and cultural ideas, a cultural, how do we express it? conceptions of how things really work. Everything is linear. Everything with this, if we do this, we'll get that. Action and reaction. Um, eh, it's a, there are different languages on the planet that are not like. That's why Srila Prabhupada sometimes says you can't translate some Sanskrit because in the English language is saturated with material conceptions of the way what is the nature of reality. So you can't translate, but actually being a Brahminical and being devotional, you can't separate them. Uh, so, so the idea is let's do it from both ends. So serenity. Look at this. There's some people engage in different austerities. Some people sit on the glacier. In the Buddhist tradition, they, people and they develop, in every tradition, people develop powers. So, as one becomes a devotee, Srila Prabhupada explains, when one becomes a devotee, the eightfold mystic powers of the perfect yogi are insignificant compared to the power of a pure devotee. Imagine that. That means that, we read in the Bible, Jesus touched someone and they're blind and they can see, and, he heals the poor. He walks on the water. He, he can tell the wind to stop blowing. So these are powers of a pure devotee. So Srila Prabhupada, in other words, doesn't have to take a plane, but but he once answers an interview. He said, "I take the plane so I can be one with you." So, but Srila Prabhupada, similarly, no one can poison Srila Prabhupada. It's just like Prahlad Maharaj. No one can poison, but Srila Prabhupada has the plan, Krishna has the plan, and he has pastimes. Nobody could crucify Jesus. Jesus who can move mountains just with his words. Does he need to be taken by soldiers? He can make them all disappear just by waving his hand. So, but he has reasons for his pastimes. Anyway, so in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, verses 14 through 16, Krishna speaks of the austerity of the body, the austerity of speech, and the austerity of the mind. In the word for word, yeah. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, verse 16, the first item in the list of austerities of the mind. The first item, mana prasada. Mana means mind. Then the word translation, word for word, I think they call that transliteration. Srila Prabhupada translates mana prasada, serenity, right? Serenity. The mind, the mind that is serene is satisfied, okay? And the mind that is satisfied is serene. By feeling into the meaning of these words, anyone can do this. You feel into the meaning of these words, satisfaction, satisfied, serene. You can taste them a little bit. Anyone can do that. Then in verse 17, No, but in the verse, Srila Prabhupada doesn't translate Manaprasada as serenity. He translated it as satisfaction of the mind, or it's the other way around. In the word for word, it's satisfaction of the mind. That's right, I remember now. And in the verse, he uses the word serene. They mean the same thing expressed in different words. So, but in verse 17, Krishna says, he's talking about it. He says that this is an austerity. He says it's called an austerity of the mind to be serene. But there are people who practice this not for pleasing Krishna. They practice it, you know, people practice yoga. They want to be serene. Yeah, it changes the distribution of airs in the body. Srila Prabhupada calls them airs, prana, udana. There are different names for the different airs that the yogis are conversant with this. So actually, Srila Prabhupada explains in Bhagavatam that the whole Hatha Yoga business, beginning with first morality, first rules and regulations, yam niyam, do and don't, do this and don't do that. That's morality and social principle. Then prana, asan, sit in a certain way, pranayam, breathe in a certain way, because it adjusts the airs in the body. And he says then a person can begin to meditate. They can, because a certain arrangement of the airs in the body make a person feel peaceful instead of agitated. So, of course, this is not prescribed today. We're chanting Hare Krishna. That's for this yuga, that is our austerity, Sankirtan. So, but in verse 17, Krishna says that if one engages in this austerity of the mind, feeling, I'm going to be satisfied, I'm going to be serene. He says in Bhagavad Gita that this, if it's done not for personal satisfaction, but with an intention to please Krishna, he says this is austerity of the mind in the mode of goodness. In other words, one can be serene because Krishna likes it. Well, Krishna likes us to be Brahminical. This is the mode, it's the austerity of the mind in the mode of goodness. Austerity is one of the qualities of the Brahmin. Samo damas tapa, sosham tapa, austerity. These are the qualities by which the Brahmin works. So Krishna says if you take this satisfaction of the mind and practice it for pleasing me, that's the austerity of the mind in the mode of goodness. We want to become Brahmin. Krishna is saying how we can become a Brahmin. So the mode of goodness is the Brahminical platform, and Krishna is telling us that Manaprasada, the cultivation of serenity of the heart or mind, they're the same thing, satisfaction of the mind, if cultivated for his pleasure, this is a Brahminical posture, a Brahminical demeanor. So in the 18th chapter, verses 51 through 53, Krishna describes a very detailed process of cultivation of the mode of goodness. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada, to those three verses, 51 to 53, Srila Prabhupada's first sentence is, when one is purified by knowledge, means you have an understanding of what is what and how things work, he keeps himself in the mode of goodness. Thus, Srila Prabhupada writes, one becomes the controller of the mind, and he's always in a trance. Now, this word trance may have a negative connotation, but in this sense, it's a positive thing. We talk of someone who's in a trance. You can't reach the guy who's in a trance, but um, but he's fixed on the television, right? So, but in this way, Srila Prabhupada is saying it's something that's always there. He has this feeling within himself when he keeps himself in goodness, and then this way one becomes the controller of his mind. And Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport that through the cultivation of goodness motive, one gradually becomes free of attachment and hatred. He becomes free of desire for sense gratification. He becomes free of false ego. He becomes free of a false sense of strength, a false sense of pride. He becomes free of lust. He becomes free of anger. And he becomes free of this idea that I have to get this done, get this done. I have to do so many things in order to maintain. Because a Brahmin, he doesn't do things. That he accepts what Krishna sends, and proportionate to his faith, Krishna provides everything he needs. So we can't do it overnight, but we can begin to cultivate. So Srila Prabhupada explains that there's this negative, that's a negative thing. Not this, not pride, not false strength, not anger, not sense gratification, not this, not this, not this. That's the negative side. You can describe things in two ways, just like Krishna says, prasanatma. When one becomes joyful, Brahma Bhuta, na sochati na kankshati. No hankering, no lamentation is the negative side of describing joyfulness. So you can describe the thing from two sides, that it's not this, but it is this. It's not hankering, it's not lamenting, it's just being joyful within your heart. So, and when you're joyful within your heart, you're not. So there's two ways to describe the same thing. So in these 50 verses 51 to 53, there's two ways. He says, you do away with anger, you do away with pride, you do away with sense gratification and desire, you do away with, you're under control, so many things. But what's the positive? Does one accomplish this renunciation by the strength of determination? Not this, not this, not this, not this. No. The positive side is implemented by keeping himself in goodness, uh, and thereby becoming the controller of his mind by keeping himself always in a trance. Let's look at the positive words in these three verses, 51 to 53. The word manasa in those verses means, Srila Prabhupada translate, control of the mind. Then there's the word dhyana yoga para. Dhyana is meditation. Dhyana yoga para. Always absorbed in trance. That's the way he's controlling his mind. And then how much does he do it? So the next word, nityam. And Srila Prabhupada translates it 24 hours. That's like, and the next word, he's controlling his mind by being absorbed in a trance, dhyana yoga para. He's doing it constantly, nityam. And what is the nature of that trance? Shanta. He's peaceful. Simply by being peaceful, he can give up all those negative things. And then Krishna says that this comes before the Brahma Bhuta verse, 54. This is 51 to 53. If you can control your mind by being absorbed in this 24 hours, living in this peaceful mode, your mind will be controlled. That's how you control, because this desire for reaching out for things, you got it all. It's all an inside job. Happiness is an inside job. Otherwise, you need another million or another billion, or you think. But another million, another billion still doesn't do it, because happiness is an inside job. So the cultivator of Krishna consciousness, he keeps himself in goodness by controlling his mind. And how does he control his mind? He controls his mind by absorbing his mind 24 hours in a peaceful demeanor. Then Krishna says in the next verse, 1854, that one who's thus transcendently situated, he begins to have the experience that I'm not this body, I'm spirit soul. Yeah, Brahma Bhuta platform. That Krishna is actually saying that if one really cultivates goodness, it expands into an understanding that I'm not this body. Okay? So how, then Krishna says in the next verse 54, one who is thus transcendently situated attains the realization that he's a spirit soul. He becomes joyful, prasanatma. He sees the spirit, and he sees the spirit. This is important, that he sees the spiritual beauty in all living beings. It says, Brahma Bhuta na sochati na kankshati samo sarveshu bhuteshu. He sees everyone as spirit. Okay? He sees everyone. What? Because Srila Prabhupada said, you may hear sometimes in a lecture, Srila Prabhupada uses this phrase, Atmavan manyate jagat. Atmavan. Van means quality, just like in Bhagavan. Bhaga means opulence, and Van means one who possesses those opulences. Like Krishna is Bhagavan, he possesses those opulences. So Atmavan means the possessor of whatever qualities that the mind has. Atmavan manyate, our mind. Jagat, we see the whole world in terms of the quality of our own mind. If we, as we begin to understand, just like in Ishopanishad, like unto the soul, like unto the sun as am I. We have to begin to accept that I'm spirit, and I'm luminous, and I'm beautiful. We have to accept our own beauty, embrace it. So, like unto the sun. So one who has this Brahma Bhuta Prasanna, that he's joyful within, he sees everyone as spirit soul. and he has no more hankering lamentation. And Krishna says, now you can become a devotee. Mad bhaktim labhate param. So So one who he sees the spiritual beauty of all living beings, samasarveshu bhuteshu, and in that state he attains the platform of pure devotional service. Mad bhaktim labhate param. The renunciation of hankering and lamentation has been achieved by cultivating feelings of inner satisfaction of his heart, not by determination. So in our third class that we had, class number 3, we describe how one who cultivates the mode of goodness, he naturally develops a serving mood. It's a symptom of goodness. Uh, in the form a serving mood, altruistic activity, philanthropic activity. He's got a man has many millions of dollars. He opens a hospital. He opens a school. He gives clothes and food to people who need. And so he enjoys it. This is the mode of goodness. Why can he do like that? because he's already satisfied within his heart. So he doesn't need to exploit. He's not madly after trying to get. He feels fulfilled. So he wants to share. It's a symptom of goodness, of the mode of goodness. So so and we have established the understanding that this ability to take pleasure in the happiness of others, this is what love means. That's all that love means. You want to define love? Love is the ability to take pleasure in the happiness and well-being of others. That's all it is. That's all that love is. And, and, and that's the way it's demonstrated. So then, and then when it's applied to Krishna, but you can't apply to Krishna if you don't have that feeling already. But if you have that serving mood in your heart and you enjoy, then as soon as you think of Krishna, you want to do something. It's automatic. That's why we have to be Brahminical before we can become devotional. So, so in this talk, we have been discussing how the cultivation of the positive qualities of the heart, the qualities of inner peace, serenity, satisfaction of the mind, it automatically situate one in goodness. Krishna said that you do this austerity of the mind, it's the austerity of the mind in the mode of goodness. You develop, you cultivate this with the desire to please me because I like it. He likes people who are self-satisfied because only a person who's self-satisfied can become a devotee. A Brahmin can become, that's what it means when we say a Brahmin can become a Vaishnava, because a Brahmin can have a serving mood, whereas a person in passion can't have a serving mood. He's serving his mind and he's serving his senses. He's feverish. And a whole process of mode of goodness to bring the fever down to 98.6. So you can begin to hear. To hear what? You're not this body. Your spirit, soul. You, your satisfaction. You're not this stuff. You can't please. You try to please this stuff, but it won't be satisfied in your heart because you're not this stuff. Or you're giving your love to matter. My house, my car, my bank account, my on the subtle platform, my social position that I can't keep. I'm going to grow old. Where's my social position going to be when I leave this body? So, but it's a subtle sense gratification. So so a person who is satisfied, it doesn't pursue all these illusory objects of satisfaction. Illusory objects of satisfaction. A person who's in goodness feels already full in himself. He enjoys. He has two things. One, because he's satisfied within his heart, he's not pursuing external sources of satisfaction. He's controlled of his senses by virtue of the fact of being situated in that goodness mode where he feels satisfaction within. And two, he's enjoying the serving mood as opposed to the exploiting mood. So he can transfer that mood to Krishna. And this is why a Brahmin can become a devotee. So, so the body and mind, there are our vehicles for engaging in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. In order to get the best use out of any vehicle, it requires a tune-up. The cultivation of satisfaction of the mind, manaprasada, inner peace of the heart. It makes our vehicle have detachment from the demands of the senses, and it makes us, the intelligence gets purified in the mode of goodness. We see things. There's a verse like that, that all the senses become uh, illumined with the gates. He says the gates become illumined with a kind of happiness, and you see everything in the right way. You can begin to understand our philosophy, that my love is meant for Krishna. So this is the wonderful power of Brahminical cultivation. Inner peace of the heart. So, and we're told to approach it from both ends. Yes, we engage in devotional activity, but we, as we said in we tried to repeat Srila Prabhupada's words, but Krishna only, quote, chapter 9, verse 2, purport Bhagavad Gita, Krishna accepts only the love with which things are offered to him. So this, so it's not what we do or how much we do. It's the quality of the consciousness with which we do these things. So we have to learn how to cultivate within ourselves these Brahminical qualities and then engage in devotional service. So then this is all conceptual, but then very briefly, we talked last time about Sudama Brahman. We won't tell the whole story. It just takes too long. But you should read these things in the Krishna book about Krishna's childhood friend, Sudama. He went to visit Krishna, and he was treated with so much love. So here's what Sudama said to himself while walking home after visiting Krishna. While walking, Sudama was thinking, it's so nice to see Krishna. He's so devoted to the Brahman. He's such a great lover of this Brahminical culture. He's the supreme Brahman himself, and yet he respects the Brahman so much that he embraced me, a poor Brahmin, like this to his chest, although he never embraces anyone to his chest except the goddess of fortune. And yet, considering me to be a Brahmin, he embraced me with heartfelt pleasure in his two transcendental arms, he massaging my legs and feeding me with his own hand. He practically worshipped me. He allowed me to sit down on the same bed where the goddess of fortune lies down. He treated me like a brother. Krishna treated me this way because he has such a high regard for the Brahmins. This is a practical demonstration of how much Krishna loves Brahminical culture. Then we have another story of that when Rukmini was Krishna has 16,000 queens in Dwarka, and Srimati Rukmini Devi, she's the principal queen. She's Krishna's goddess of fortune, from whom the other goddesses of fortunes expand. And she grew up in the house of what was it, Maharaj. Uh, I don't have it in front of me.
Rukmi.
Rukmi was her older brother,
Yes.
and Maharaj Bhishmaka. So Maharaj Bhishmaka was the king of Vidarbha, and Rukmini, he had 5 sons and 1 daughter, and Rukmini was his daughter. And Narada Muni used to visit their court. Imagine having that if Narada Muni came to in the United States to the White House when they were having their meetings and talked nicely with all of them and said, "You boys," so so mm, so yeah. So, but because Narada Muni described Krishna in those meetings when he came to Maharaj Bhishmaka's court, so so then Rukmini fell in love with Krishna just by hearing about like that. Of course, in the spiritual world, she always with Krishna, but but they have their pastimes in this world, so we can learn something from these pastimes. So her older brother hated Krishna, Rukmi, and he arranged for a marriage of Rukmini with Shishupala. Shishupala hated Krishna so much that at the Rajasuya sacrifice, when Maharaj Yudhisthira was going to perform Rajasuya sacrifice, they have to take one person from all the kings and all the sages who are gathered and give them the first worship to the most beautified person, the most highest person. And they were talking, maybe we should recognize Krishna or Shishupala. He was beside himself. He called Krishna all kinds of bad names. He said, how can he does it? You don't even know if this guy is a Brahmin or a Vaishnav or what he is. He's a cheater, he's a liar, he's this, he's that. And everyone in the assembly was very upset. And the Pandavas, Bhima wanted to get up and tear him to pieces. And Krishna said, let him talk. Let him talk. And then he had promised Shishupal's mother that, because he knew from Shishupal's birth that he's going to hate me. He said, he promises, because then there was a prophecy that Krishna would kill Shishupal. So his mother asked him, please don't kill my son. He says, I'll let him make at least 100 insults. And so he was waiting for Shishupala to reach number 100, and then he went, and his chakra appeared in his hand, and he went, and the chakra cut off Shishupala's head. So Rukmi, all the family members wanted Krishna and Rukmini to be married. They loved the idea, but Rukmi, the eldest brother of Rukmini, she said he arranged for the marriage of Rukmini with this Shishupal who hates Krishna. So she's very smart because she's raised in a beautiful way, aristocratic way. She understands diplomacy, politics, everything. So she sends the Brahmin to with a message to Krishna, please come and get me. Come and kidnap me. Take me away from all this. I just want to be your wife. So we're going to not take too long. So how was this Brahmin received by Krishna? When he, Rukmi's messenger, Brahmin, after being respectfully received by Krishna, the Brahmin, he took his bath, okay? Then he accepted his meal, and he took rest on a beautiful bedstead covered with silken sheets and everything. And then, as the Brahmin is resting on the bed, right, Krishna approaches him very silently. And what does he do? With very respectfully takes the Brahmin's legs and he puts them on his lap. And he begins to massage the Brahmin's legs. And while he's massaging the Brahmin's legs, he says to him, "My dear Brahmin, I hope your mind is always in a serene condition." Same story. This is very important, Krishna says, because if your mind is peaceful, only then will you be able to execute your religious principles without any difficulty. You should always remain satisfied within your heart. Because if a Brahmin is self-satisfied, he'll be able to nicely attend to his prescribed Brahminical duties, and in that way he can attain the highest perfection of all desires. Krishna is massaging while he's talking like this. He says, even if a person, he's explaining to the Brahmin, or even if a person is as opulent as the king of heaven, Lord Indra, if he doesn't have this satisfaction within the core of his heart, he will inevitably have to transmigrate from one planet to another. He'll never be happy under any circumstance. But if a person, Krishna says, is satisfied internally, even if he loses his high social or economic position, excuse me, even, yeah, if a person might, even if he loses his high social or economic position, he can be happy living anywhere and everywhere. So I'm just going to check if I have power. Okay, I got on my computer if I have to plug it in. So then Krishna's saying exactly what our lecture is about, or our talk is about. So, and at this point in the text, Srila Prabhupada intervenes while Krishna is talking to the Brahmin in this way, praising the qualities of inner satisfaction of the heart, serenity, and whatnot. Srila Prabhupada writes, the purport is that a true Brahmin should never be disturbed in any situation. Why? Because he has no sense of loss, and he's not working about gain. And then, and the last thing Krishna says, I offer my respectful obeisances to the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, because the Brahmanas are always self-satisfied. Krishna, because he values this quality that we have to cultivate, because it enables us to become devotees. Returning again to Bhagavad Gita 1854, Krishna tells Arjuna that the Brahmana who cultivates this quality of serenity within his heart becomes joyful, free from material concerns of gain and loss. And in such a condition, Krishna says, one can become his pure devotee. So the summary is, the first part of this class is philosophical, a conceptual presentation in praise of Brahminical culture. The Brahminical qualities of inner peace of the heart enable one to be effortlessly detached from sense gratification. And also this quality of inner serenity enables one to feel inwardly fulfilled and to take pleasure in the happiness of others. In this way, by transferring this loving propensity, this to Krishna, a Brahmin becomes a Vaishnava. It's for this reason that Krishna has so much loving appreciation for Brahminical culture. And the later part of this class, which we just did, provides a living description of Krishna's love for Brahminical culture. Krishna's loving behavior toward the Brahmanas, this endorses this understanding that the Brahminical cultivation of inner peace of the heart, this is our strongest asset in our cultivation of Krishna consciousness. As we wish to reestablish a loving relationship with Krishna, we have to let us cultivate these Brahminical qualities that will make Krishna desire to embrace us to his heart. Amen. That's what they say. So, trying to share a little bit of this understanding that it's not a mechanical thing, it's about tuning our equipment, taking us from passionate self-centeredness to the serving mood, where the serving mood begins to flow spontaneously, and freedom from sense desire becomes manifest in us. Where freedom from sense desire becomes manifest in us, and the serving mood begins to flow, we can approach Krishna. We've had our tune-up. This is our vehicle, our equipment, this body, mind, and a complex. And we give it this Brahminical cultivation is the tune-up of our mind-body vehicle for. So even okay, so we don't expect that by hearing this, everyone's going to turn into a Brahmin. It's a gradual process of cultivation. What we want to do is simply give information. So if a person understands that this is the process, he can start to think about it. And as we desire, man proposes, God disposes. Bhagavad Gita 10:10, the Krishna, the purport. When we want to be able to learn how this thing works, what we call Krishna consciousness, the cultivation of this new consciousness or this old consciousness, our inherent sleeping consciousness, will wake it up. If we have a desire, Krishna will help us. If we want to learn how to develop the Brahminical quality of inner self-satisfaction, Krishna will help us. He will give us the intelligence how to. You know, it's so nice. I tell you personally, the first thing I do when I get out of bed in the morning is move back into this mode, because in this mode, when my heart is satisfied, I can feel Srila Prabhupada's presence. That's the price of being able to have a sense of loving connection, reciprocation, is that when we become satisfied within our hearts, we can feel, because Srila Prabhupada is omnipresent. Krishna is omnipresent. We can sense that when our equipment is tuned properly. And the Brahminical cultivation is the tuning of our equipment that enables us to be Krishna conscious. This is only information. Don't anyone be at all feel, but at a loss. Just the first step is to understand. Then gradually, as the desire is there, and we read the books and hear Srila Prabhupada's lectures, talks, and we're trying to understand, it will be revealed to us how we can cultivate this quality which enables us to approach Krishna in the serving mood. It will. So I'm only trying to give a little bit of understanding of the process of Krishna consciousness, and, so to plant that understanding, a little seed of understanding, according to my tiny ability to do so, and then each of us. They'll run with it at their own pace in their own way. But at least we should know, have a sense of direction, just like you got a GPS. It tells you now turn left, now turn right. We need a GPS for cultivating Krishna consciousness. Not going to happen for a million years. You keep doing the same thing in a mechanical way. Bam, 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 bam. It's not going to do anything. It might purify us to the point where we begin to understand what we have to do. It's just like Bahunam Janmanamante. After many, many births, one who's really wise, he surrenders to Krishna. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai, we have Janaspriya Prabhu from Hawaii, our friend, devotee friend, God brother, and Robert Barron as well, Prabhu, from
Ah,
Fresno. He's been there from the very beginning. So,
Hare.
any anything that you want to discuss, Robert Barron Prabhu, Janaspriya?
No, not at the moment.
Okay,
No, I don't have nothing to add or just to say. I actually forgot kind of, what was being discussed,
that's okay. It's recorded, so you
Yeah.
can rewatch it.
Okay.
Um, Janaspriya, if anything, you can speak. Next topic. Have you thought about next topic, Ishan Prabhu?
No, I don't know where I'm going next, but
Okay.
I'll be in touch with you.
Okay. Sure. You said this Krishna consciousness formula that Prabhupada has given, the chanting, the services, uh, you know, we can, if we were intelligent enough, we can, create a robot that can wash the pots. I mean, well, the machines can do that. All these things. Maybe the deity worship is a kind of complex, but these feelings towards the deity, feelings towards the devotees, all these things, require a conscious approach. But if we are mechanically doing it, it does not last. I mean, like you have said, one devotee that was a pujari, he did it for that long and he just left. So, and then another aspect of that is that this mechanical following is beneficial to that degree that Prabhupada writes the superfluous, what was it? That superfluous,
Meditation.
yes, yes, yes.
The superfluous miseries of material consciousness will be mitigated. In other words, if we engage in a good kirtan,
Yes.
if we engage in robust japa,
Mm,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. We're going to feel a mitigation of stress, anxiety. We're going to feel good.
right,
But a Mayavadi can do that.
right. Yes.
And they do.
Yes, yes,
They engage in kirtan.
right,
There are, it's on YouTube. It's on
right,
there.
right.
I know of these people followers of other bogus yogis.
Yes.
They are having big kirtans and they have followers and they have no belief in Krishna whatsoever, but they're chanting Hare Krishna and
Wow.
it makes them feel good.
Mm,
So Srila Prabhupada says that if we engage mechanically, we will feel good too.
mm,
But he says, but it won't serve to reawaken our dormant love of Krishna.
that's the point. Yeah.
The only thing that will serve to reawaken our dormant love of Krishna is to engage in these practices with what is love means being personal. That's it.
Yes.
How can you want to, if you're showing someone love means connecting with another person,
Mm,
feeling of wishing them pleasure,
mm,
So we have to do it like that.
yes.
And this is maybe new for some people to hear, but it's the fact. It's in
Right.
our books and it's in Srila Prabhupada's words that it will not serve to reawaken our dormant love of Krishna. It will make us feel good,
Mm,
but it won't give us the goal. So therefore, he's trying to encourage us in his talks to he says, Priti purvakam, tesham satadayuktanam bhajatam, priti, he says, that's the essential ingredient. That's required. He's pounding it. Why? Because we don't understand.
mm,
We're thinking somehow or other
mm,
that so the forms of devotional service, this is they're a medium through which we cultivate our loving feeling. They in themselves don't create loving feeling. We have to supply it through that medium, through these activities, to be a little sincere. I put a plate on the altar. I can say, Srila Prabhupada, please, I can't make, I should be giving it to you on a gold plate with jewels
mm,
and but this is what I have. Please accept. And by practicing in that way,
mm.
it comes.
Right.
And to know that we have the ability to cultivate this inner peace. Krishna says we should do it. He likes it. We can do. So it's only a question of bringing it into focus and then learning to live in that way. And of course, we've been in the mode of passion, but the word I was looking for in the other classes, malleable,
Mm,
malleable, malleable means like some like lead or gold. You can change the shape of it. Uh, the modes of material nature are malleable. By cultivating the mode of ignorance, one becomes ignorant. By cultivating the mode of passion, one becomes, and by cultivating the mode of goodness, one becomes situated in goodness. So we cultivate like that. So, and Srila Prabhupada says the four regulative principles, Krishna book, volume 2, the four regular, they're the preliminary qualifications for entering the mode of goodness. It's like
mm.
just the beginning, but the real mode of goodness is an inside job.
Right.
You know.
All right. Hare Krishna. So if there's no more questions or points devotees want to raise here,
yeah, I do.
okay, go ahead.
We
Why is it some devotees or some groups that are, associated with Krishna consciousness, why do they have this emphasis or this idea of, or hyper focusing on the fact that, Srila Prabhupada was poisoned And then Ishan said that, nobody could poison. I understand what Ishan was saying about, nobody could crucify Jesus Christ, Lord Jesus Christ. Nobody could kill him, essentially. I understand what he means by that. But I'm just trying to understand this in the other way, as well, the other side of the spectrum, where they hyper focus on this,
Yes, yes, I understand what you're saying. So Srila Prabhupada says, you go to a church, they have Jesus on the cross. Why? He says, Jesus did so many things. Why did they want him on the cross? So it's the same thing. Srila Prabhupada did so many things. Why you want to focus on the poison? So Krishna, there's a pastime that we don't talk about, how he left this world. He received an arrow in the foot from a hunter. The pastime by which Krishna, so he gives Srila Prabhupada sometimes explain that Krishna will act in a certain way, that there are those who want to believe in him and those who don't. And for those who don't, he gives them a little ammunition, how to come to the conclusion that this Krishna is an ordinary man. Just see, he got an arrow in his foot and he was killed. Just see. So, so there, it's a distraction, Prabhu. Instead, all the things that Srila Prabhupada has written 80 or 100 volumes of books. Srila Prabhupada in 10 years' time spread Krishna consciousness all over the whole world. Srila Prabhupada did, and he did it so blissfully and so beautifully. If we had those kind of responsibilities, we would be, they would have to lock us up. So, and Srila Prabhupada, always blissful, always loving, always lecturing, always. So why do they want to go there? What is it going to accomplish? What can they, even if they found out who was doing such a thing like that, what will it change? The only thing, if we want to please Srila Prabhupada, if we care about Srila Prabhupada, well, we have to take up this process and become devotees, not by trying to prove somebody did this or somebody did that. So it's a useless distraction, waste of time. It won't accomplish or change anything. Srila Prabhupada does not need our protection. He's protected by Krishna, and he's with Krishna, and he's still here among us.
Right.
And there's more technical explanations that when Sita Devi was kidnapped by Ravana, it wasn't the real Sita. Same idea. So the idea is nobody can hurt Krishna's pure devotee, but it may appear like that. When Srila Prabhupada was going through that activity, what did he do? It seemed like he could barely walk. He could barely sit up. But every morning, he was having them take him to Mongol Arti. So what do you want to get from that? He wanted to go on Sankirtan, and he had to carry him on a palanquin through the streets of Vrindavan. He could barely sit up. He could barely speak, it seemed, but he was dictating more purports. Krishna is the supreme person. Okay, so you want to concentrate on Srila Prabhupada in his last days? Remember that no matter in what condition we are, on our last dying day in the material world, let us be talking Krishna consciousness. Let us wanting to go on Sankirtan. Let us wanting to go to Mongol Artik. That's what we remember. But just to chase somebody who might have been trying to do this or that, Krishna will take care of them if
Yes.
such a thing is there. Krishna knows everything. Srila Prabhupada is with Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's still here with us. Just like Krishna is still here with us.
Jai, Hare Krishna. So I think that's the end of the program for tonight or today, this evening. If anything, devotees can email Ishan Prabhu if they have any questions or comments. What's your email, Prabhu? Peter.
Peter. Peter. Ishan Das. ISHANDAS @gmail.com.
Jai.
Anyone can write me and give me a piece of your mind.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, all the devotees, for attending. We'll see you next week.